So hello and welcome to this Darkwave firmware update video for the Black Noir from Endorphins. Before we get into it, here's a bit of what's to come. So the Darkwave firmware brings in new effects and new features for the Black Noir, and these are also available for the Grand Terminal too. The key feature for me with this update is that we can now route auxiliary sounds through the effects engine. Now you can watch my original Black Noir video at the link in the description and check out all these features in depth, because I won't be explaining every little thing, I'm just going to go through the updates in this video. Previously, the auxiliary in went through this high pass low pass isolator style filter but didn't go through the effects engine. We could choose by holding type for a second whether all of the drums or just certain drums on these switches went through the effects. Now there's a 5-second press that we can do on type, and this switches the behavior. It actually reverses these switches, so if it was on to the left it's now on to the right and vice versa. But what this does is it routes the auxiliary input through the effects engine, so we can have all of the drums through it and not the external in, or any single drum through it. We could have just the snare and the auxiliary through the effects, or just the auxiliary through the effects. It opens up a whole lot of routing possibilities, and processing live sounds, acoustic sounds, synth sounds, other voices through the auxiliary input and into these effects sounds great, and I'll do some of that in the video. The Darkwave firmware also brings us these 8 new effects, a couple of which we've seen already. We've got the new gated reverb, spring reverb that we've seen before, ping pong delay, flanger, ring modulator, distortion, compression, and the freezer effect. I'm going to go through all of these effects, showing the dry wet blends. Some of them now act on and off with the tap. We can gate some of them on and off. We can CV rates and sizes and a whole load of other things. And there's also now a reset for the secondary functions for the effects. Most of these are dry wet, a primary function, which is that green LED, and a secondary function when it flashes red. We just hold tap to move between them. Holding both of these for a second will reset them all. So nice little handy workflow tip. Now we can route the auxiliary in through the effects, which you've seen on the graphics on screen, but I will do this part way through as well and start to route some external signals through. Let's get into these 8 effects, because they sound ace. So this first new effect is the gated reverb, and here it is switched in on my snare drum. Dry wet. The size of the reverb. And then the secondary function that we get by holding the tap is the threshold of the noise gain. So let's set a big reverb, back the dry wet off, and check out that threshold. We see the little LED flick to tell us we're in secondary function. All the way down, the noise gate's wide open. It's no longer a gated reverb. Bringing that threshold up. Just that very initial moment of energy is getting through, because that threshold is set quite high. Because I've got some aux in going, some of the internal sample and hold modulating this bit crushing of the noise, let's just hear this in isolation. So here's the dry snare. Send it to the effect. Dry wet just over half. And for this gated reverb, as I said, to start with, the initial function is the size of the verb. Holding tap, this will flash red to show secondary function. It becomes threshold for the noise gate for the gated reverb. So let's lower that right down. that turns it off. And we now just have completely open reverb. And it's pretty infinite. It sounds good too. With a quite large verb, let's go back to the secondary function. Bring that noise gate threshold up. So that's the gated reverb. So the second effect, and we just move through these by type, and it flashes green for the first 4 with 1, 2, 3 or 4, hits red for 5 with 1, 2, 3 or 4 blinks of that LED for 5, 6, 7 or 8. So that's 6, 7, 8, back to 1. Effect 2 is this spring reverb. All the sounds have been sent to it. And we have that decay of the spring. And with a normal mechanical real spring reverb, you've no adjustment over the decay. That's just the length of this mechanical structure. But you can kind of feed back the spring on this first function here. You can ride this great kind of feedback tone. But the secondary function, and we can play this like we're pinging the spring or striking a real spring in real life on a real mechanical spring. If you just hold tap, notice that's coming up. So I'm going to strike this, and the CV input will kind of strike this spring. It will excite it. Holding tap to get into the secondary function. This is the length of that exciter. So with just the snare triggering, you can hear that this is being excited. And this is the length of that excitement on that secondary function. Short to long. And it just sounds great. Let's get the other sounds back in. Go back to the normal function, set the decay of the spring. And that's the spring reverb. So effect 3 is the ping pong delay, and I'm coming out of the stereo headphone or line out here and splitting this signal all through the video so you can hear these effects in stereo. Make sure you get some headphones on, I'll put some decent speakers on and hear them in their great stereo glory. So, ping pong delay, effects number 3. Let's send everything in. Dry wet up top. Feedback amount. The secondary function is a clock divider, and this is the clock input. I'm using this LED cable so you can kind of see it pinging away quarter notes, the same rhythm as the bass drum. With a kind of conservative delay setting, let's go into that secondary function and change up the clock division. Oh, that one's cool. So that's the ping pong delay. Feedback, normal function, secondary function, clock division. So the fourth effect, and this is a flanger. Let's send some snare into it. This becomes like the rate, the center position. This is modulation rate. We can get all sorts of audio rate mangled tones, or slow that modulation right down. The secondary function is feedback amount. Now, at this point, I want to show you how we can send the auxiliary in, which is new for the Darkwave firmware, to the effects as well. So here's a droning wave. By default, it doesn't go through to the effects. But by holding type for approximately 5 seconds, and if I take these out, notice this is going through the effects. It's a nice detune, unison, reverb-like vibe. And we can still then choose with a 1 second press of type whether we want to send the effects through or not. So let's get the pattern going again. The switches work the opposite way now, so the effects is already going through. The auxiliary in will always go through the effects, but we can still cut out the drums. So we can just use this as an effects engine for an auxiliary input. Still filters together. Send that snare in. So it's opened up a whole new level of using these effects for an external sound, the external sound and the drums, or just the drums, and still using an external sound through the filtering should you wish. So effect number 5 is the ring modulator. So none of the drum sounds are going through, and just an external sound is going through this ring modulator. I'm modulating the primary function, and I'm clocking the black noir and using the internal sample and hold to modulate the dry wet blend. So stopping my drums, just remove the modulation. Here's my dry static tone that's coming into the aux in. Have a dry wet for the ring mod. The pitch that this is ring modulating against. And that secondary function goes red is a feedback amount. So with the feedback down, we get a lovely clean LFO or VCO rate. Do some nice tremolo-like effects. But by adding in some feedback, this just pushes the whole thing further. So the internal sample and hold. And if any of these features are not clear because I'm not describing them, do go watch my main primary black noir video that I will link in the description. Let's modulate the dry wet blend. This becomes an attenuator. And then I'm going to modulate this rate. could still send these drums in, which sounds great. Say just with a kick, just get these little bursts and chirps of ring mod that come through. Let's make that kick longer. It just adds this whole other dimension and character to a groove. So mod 6 is a distortion, and this doesn't have a secondary function. Instead, the tap serves as an on and off. We then get overdrive and tone, like your kind of classic distortion pedals. This emphasizes tones above 1 kHz from 12 o'clock and up, and emphasizes lower frequencies than 1 kHz from 12 o'clock down. So drive down a bit, tone down, here's the distortion. And I'm running all the drums through it currently. So you can hear that tone shift the emphasis. Drive will go as bonkers as you would like. But the CV input works along with the tap with gates and triggers at that in to turn this effect on and off. Now I still have this set up for the auxiliary input to be affected, so let's get an external sound in and check it out as well. This is just a sequenced oscillator. And I just love the way the drums completely choke it out. Just going to stop my drums. Here's the dry sound. Just a static wavetable with some random pitch. Quantized pitch, that is. Overdrive on. And there's plenty of drive. With the drums back in. So effects mode 7 is a compressor, and we have the ratio on the top knob, the threshold on the bottom knob. The secondary function, that little red LED, little hold of the tap, gives us our attack time. Leave the attack around the middle. Let's check out the compression. I'm sending everything into this currently, but I will isolate and send individual sounds in. And also this CV in works as a sidechain input. So I'm going to bring some drum sounds in to start mangling an external sound as well. But first, here's the dry drum sound. Up in the ratio, let's drop this compression threshold. And you can hear there's some makeup gain that's automatic as well, but you will want to watch your levels like you would with any kind of compression and gain stage. And notice the length of this kick, because everything's going in, is going to really affect the compression. As I reduce that, let's check out the attack time. Super fast poppy compression to pretty much wide open. Bringing up that kick length. It's going to kind of choke out the sounds a bit because there's so much energy in this low end long kick. Now let's just send the snare into it. And you can really make it smack. Let's try that attack time again. I mean, if you want kind of transient design, there it is. Now with no sound going through, I've still got this set so the auxiliary sound passes right into the compression. There's a drone-in wave. We could send all the drums back in. And it's all going to kind of move around because of the energy in the wave and the drums. Without the drums going in, compressing a static wave doesn't really do anything. But patching our drum sound into the sidechain we're getting this movement against the drums. And you can play around with external signals, patching individual sounds in, still routing certain sounds in, compressing external signals. It's a really great additional tool for sculpting sound live or even in the studio. And Effects Mode 8 is still this freezer that can slow down the frozen effect up to 5 times or speed it up to 5 times. And we can reverse the grains in this little freezer algorithm or play them forward as well. Holding tap. There's the grain reverse. And the size of the grains. There's just tons of sounds to be had. Let's get a sequence in to CV in to get this freeze on and off. All the sounds are currently being routed through it. Let's route some sound in through this aux in. And because these are being routed through, we can just affect the auxiliary sound. So that's it for the new Darkwave firmware for the Black Noir, which is also available for the Grand Terminal. So skip back through to any of those 8 effects. Check out my original Black Noir video that goes through all these features in depth. All the modulation, clocking, fills that we can do, muting, sequencing, the whole works. Hit like, subscribe, comment, support me on Patreon if you like what I do. Cheers for watching.